Got to make sure I can see where I am before I start reviewing this goddamn thing.
What up, Naughty Steppers? Connor Whitmore here again with another review for you on the Nawtystep channel. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the new EP from Marauda, released on Malignant Music, Elevate. Hamish Prasad, aka Marauda, is back with his second EP of 2019. A follow-up to Shit Volume 1, another seriously impactful collection in Prasad's catalogue, supplying another hefty dose of his unforgiving tear-out sound, whilst also giving us a glimpse of how it could branch out. It's been matters beyond the music, however, that have taken the limelight in his life since. Prasad changing his name to Marauda from Mastodon, the alias he'd gone by for a number of years, which became an issue because of the heavy metal band also named Mastodon, and if you want my extensive thoughts on that whole situation, then check out this video. A change you would think would rock the boat in terms of the progress and development of a producer, especially one as young as Prasad. But the reality is the exact opposite, Prasad continuing to level up on the back of that change. Playing shows all over the world, exciting collaborations coming up, building his fan base more and more, there's seemingly no stopping him. And coming into this new EP, I was curious as to the extent we would see him branch his sound out more. Something I know he's quite conscious of, and which feels like an aspect he could ease into his style at this point. But do we get enough of that experimentation on the Elevate EP? Yeah, I would say yeah. Like Shit Volume 1, this project gives us another solid helping of Prasad's staple booming dubstep sound. Yet more so than its predecessor, Elevate provides a very solid insight into where Prasad can take his sound going forward. And I will start with that track exactly, the closer Home, which is, for the most part, absolutely beautiful. Now, if I said to you that a predominantly dubstep producer has done a NEURO-inspired tribute or ode to the cinematic orchestras to build a home, I wouldn't blame you for scratching your head in puzzlement over how it would work. But I can't lie, it really does. Prasad unleashing new life in the original, whilst clearly putting his own stamp on it in a new way for him. Or a NEURO way, should I say. Where the original is quite light and delicate, this one immerses you deeply in the emotion of it from the very off. The warm, holy opening emerges from beneath and has a kind of soul-healing quality to it, really lovely on the ear. It's so blissful, and I would have loved for it to be twice the length. However, the twinkly musicality seeps nicely into the first drop, which, as I mentioned, has a definite NEURO gleam to it. Very low-key production for him, but it's really well put together. All of these contorted, twisted sounds angled nicely over the tight percussion, interacting and finding every bit of space to dive into. Oh, so beautiful. My only wish being that the NEURO sounds were a bit fresher and more vibrant, like original Cohen's sound for example. They're a bit too muffled and underwater for my liking. But the idea is so lovely, and to have it replicated almost exactly for the second drop highlights the power of it. Especially seeing also as it's completely different to what we usually hear from him. In terms of mood, it's pretty much the polar opposite. It is the melodic aspect that gets me most about it though, so kind and comforting and full of hope, it's glorious. From the introduction to the slightly darker midsection and outro, stunningly atmospheric, I end up just wanting more of it. And it makes me feel like electronic music producers or bass music producers, whatever, should remix orchestral stuff more. There's a real potential there, such a mix of emotions is so striking. Little side note, as I delve into a different style of production for him altogether, I definitely see this as an extension of Cthulhu from the last EP, which shows a little bit of experimentation from him, but not as much as we get here. Before Home though, we get two absolutely classic Marauda slappers, which are proof that his very heavy side isn't going anywhere anytime soon. The opener and title track, showcasing a really sweet dynamic between all the different types of dubstep presentation on show. You've got the rising fake out to start, the stomping sequences, more contorted and twisted stuff, but on a much bigger scale to Home. So much going on, and it all works together so effectively as well. Nothing jarring or off about the transitioning between everything either. It's just vintage Prasad. My only issue with that first drop being that snare, which for me is too thin to prop everything else up. The second drop, however, is more rounded and full, like the first drop but unleashed, let out of its cage, if that was possible. More of an insistent, stabby appeal, which leaves a real impression, got those winding down screeches too, which never go amiss in a Marauda tune. It's so characteristically fat and beefy and large and haunting and impending, and this carries on into the second track, Blunder, which is absolutely nothing like its namesake. Again, this is more dubstep that shouldn't be so well put together with so much going on, but is. Again, it's stacked, from the huge zaps kicking off the first drop, to the different percussive structures, the mind-melting breaks. And that's before I get onto the double drops, with their winding chopper sounds, more lasers, the stomping, stabbing parts of the second drop. It's pure carnage. Oh my fucking god. Incredibly varied in sound and layout, aware of its progression, constantly keeps you on your feet and guessing. It's his usual style, just with more energy, and it's brilliant. Detractors may say that it's too similar to a lot of his other stuff, but for me he's always kept that style fresh, and how he's managed to do that, I'm not quite so sure. A lot of his songs do just sound like variants of one another, but it's how they're made. You know, with Prasad, I know I'm going to get that riveting sound and super well made, and it just gets you, it becomes a craving. And a fair few producers have tried to mimic that sound over the last year or so, but quite frankly, on a level of production quality, no one else comes even remotely close. Now, I've explored the heavier parts of Elevate and Blunder, but I couldn't leave you without discussing everything else these songs have to offer. The opening of the EP on the title track, that big room trance-like introduction, how it subsumes you and the atmosphere builds, wonderful stuff. The way that it emerges from the depths at the end as well, growing more as it finishes, gives a real sense of completion to that cut. That dramatic interlude as well, with the colourful acidic sounds in the background, such a good mix of elements. Blunder also having a continuous feel to it when it comes to discussing the introduction, midsection and outro. Each sequence sounding like something from 28 Days Later, very post-apocalyptic, the way it slows down at the end really letting that sense of horror linger. It's scary. Also, the vocal samples in this track I find to be the best. You've got Rise of the Rifle towards the end, and the savage metal vocals in every build are terrifying. And so overall, in spite of Elevate being less substantive than past EPs of his, kind of over before it gets going, for what it is, it's still a very good listen. I don't think an EP will look back on and go, oh yeah, definitely one of the more standout collections from him. It seems less whole simply because it's so short and sweet. But it is an important one for experimentation, showing an expansion on his sound. We may not get a lot of it, but it lodges itself in your brain, and that's vital for him going forward. Only 3 songs, but such a ridiculous amount to talk about, so much to every tune, which is why this review is so lengthy, all things considered. You know, I really could talk about everything that goes on here for hours on end, so much detail to wax lyrical about, says a lot about how it's layered, the depth of it. Once more with him, the ideas are really good, the execution and production is very on point for the most part, the transitioning all round is seamless. And even though the majority of it sounds very similar to what he's put out already, I find myself wanting more each time I listen through. He just has a way with his delivery, I've mentioned this before, but with so many loud sounds being brought together, fighting for space, it really shouldn't work, but it almost always does. Simple structures with a mammoth impact, and I don't think you can name another producer out there doing one style so much and it not getting boring in any way. A style that, lest we forget, is very easy to do badly, and not that I want to make his age a big thing here or ever, but I do have to keep reminding myself just how old he is. So yeah, ultimately I don't have a lot of bad to say about this EP. Moments in each song that are a bit off on the execution, and definitely not easy to ignore, don't get me wrong. But in the context of the EP, the ideas leave a far bigger impression than the execution, another really good collection for him to add to his burgeoning discography. And one that didn't even take that long to make, his second EP in 3.5 months, we cannot forget. Just excited again really as to where he goes from here. Will it be more gargantuan, unforgiving dubstep, or more experimentation with his style? But on the basis of Elevate, if the production quality is maintained, whatever Prasad feels like making, for the immediate future at least, I'm gonna be on board with it. Now in terms of my favourite on Elevate, then I think I would have to go with the closer, Home, just for how different it is and how fantastic the melodic aspect of it is. There's stuff I'd change and I do wish it was longer, but mostly such a great listen. And in terms of recommendations, if you enjoyed the EP, then I would just look at past Marauda, but also some Hella and Cybersex, Dala, Super Wet, just have an explore of interval audio as well. And so there we have it, my thoughts on the new EP from Marauda, Elevate. What did you guys make of the EP? Do you have a favourite track from the three? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, then be sure to give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell along the way so you can be notified whenever I upload a new video to the channel, and my social media accounts are in the description box down below. For some other EP reviews on the channel, check out the link next to my head somewhere. And lastly, if it's naughty, then you know guys, so be sure, as always, to keep it naughty and stay safe. And I shall see all of you legends in the next one. Peace out.